The Great Hall of Valanthra Prime was the most beautiful place in the known galaxy. Giant crystals hung from the ceiling, and soft blue light filled every corner. Here, the leaders of 12 star systems came together to talk about the future of space. They called themselves the Galactic Assembly, and they had ruled the stars for thousands of years. On this day, something unusual happened. A human walked into the hall. His name was Daniel Hayes. He was 35 years old, with dark hair and tired eyes that had seen too much. He wore the simple gray uniform of the Earth Diplomatic Corps, and he walked with the careful steps of a man who knew he did not belong. Daniel was the first human ever allowed to speak in this hall, as people had only discovered how to travel between stars 18 years ago. To the aliens around him, Earth was like a baby trying to sit at the adult table. Princess Solara of the Vethrani Empire watched him from her seat high above the floor. Her skin was silver, smooth like metal but soft like silk. She had 4 eyes, all of them violet, and they followed Daniel with cold interest. She leaned toward her advisor, a thin creature named Counselor Malith, who had served her family for 200 years. "They actually sent one of them," she whispered. "How funny. I heard their entire history is only a few thousand years long." Malith nodded slowly. "The Vethrani have ruled for 60,000 cycles, Your Highness. These humans are babies. They know nothing of the universe. Yet, they think they deserve a seat among us." Solara laughed quietly. "Let us see what this baby has to say." Daniel heard every word. The small device in his ear translated all languages perfectly, even whispers. His commanders had warned him about the Vethrani before he left Earth. They were proud, powerful, and they looked down on every species, younger than their own. But knowing about something and feeling it were different things. Daniel felt his face grow hot with anger, but he pushed the feeling down. He had a job to do. He stepped onto the speaking platform in the center of the hall. Thousands of alien eyes turned to look at him. Some were curious. Some were bored. Many were hostile. Daniel took a deep breath. "Honored representatives," he began, keeping his voice steady. "I come before you today not to talk about how great humanity is. I come to ask for something simple. I ask for a seat at this table and a voice in galactic affairs. Nothing more." The hall was quiet. Daniel continued, "Humanity is young. We know this. We have made mistakes. We have hurt each other and damaged our own world. But we have also learned from our errors. We have grown. And we believe we have something to offer this assembly." Before he could say more, Princess Solara stood up from her seat. This was against the rules. No one was supposed to interrupt the speaker. But she was a princess, and she did not care about rules. She walked down the steps toward him, her long gown flowing behind her like water made of starlight. Every eye in the hall watched her. "A voice?" she said, her tone sweet like honey but cold like ice. "Tell me, Commander Hayes, what voice does a species deserve when it cannot even stop fighting among itself?" She stopped right in front of him, so close he could see himself reflected in her silver skin. "We have watched your world," she continued. "Your people killed each other for centuries. You fought wars over small pieces of land. You murdered each other because you believed in different gods. You are violent, primitive, and dangerous." Daniel met her gaze without looking away. "We did those things, and we learned from them." "Learned?" Solara laughed, and the sound echoed through the hall like breaking glass. "You learned nothing. You are children playing with fire, and you will burn yourselves and everyone near you. The assembly would be foolish to give you anything more than permission to watch from the corner." Several representatives nodded in agreement. Daniel could feel the mood of the hall turning against him, but he did not back down. "With respect, Princess," he said calmly, "humanity does not need your approval. We only ask for the chance to prove ourselves. Salar smiled, but there was no warmth in it. Then prove yourselves human. When your species does something worthy of the stars, perhaps we will talk again. She turned her back on him. In the Thrani culture, this was the worst insult possible. It meant she considered him so far beneath her that he did not deserve to see her face. The hall began to buzz with whispered conversations. Daniel stood alone on the platform, feeling smaller than he had ever felt in his life. The assembly voted. The result was 8-4 against humanity. Earth was denied full membership. They would remain observers, allowed to watch but never to speak or vote. Daniel walked toward the great doors of the hall. His mission had failed. Years of preparation, months of travel across the stars, all for nothing. At the doors, he paused and looked back. Princess Salar was sitting with her friends, laughing. She caught his eye and smiled mockingly, then turned away as if he were already forgotten. A young alien approached Daniel quietly. His name was Tellus, and he was a Korvathi observer. His species looked like tall insects, with hard shells and large black eyes. But his voice was gentle. "Commander Hayes," Tellus said softly, "do not let her words hurt you. The princess knows nothing about your people. She judges you by your past, not your potential." Daniel looked at the alien, surprised by his kindness. "Thank you," he said. "But her words do not hurt me." "No?" Daniel shook his head slowly. He looked back at Selara one more time. She was still laughing, surrounded by her admirers, certain of her place in the universe. "She will learn," Daniel said quietly. "One day, she will understand what humans are capable of." Tellus tilted his head, curious. "You sound very sure." Daniel smiled, but it was not a happy smile. It was the smile of a man who knew something that others did not. "I am," he said. And then he walked out of the hall, leaving the laughter behind him. He did not know that in 3 months, everything would change. He did not know that an ancient enemy was waking up in the darkness between stars. An enemy that had destroyed thousands of civilizations before Earth even existed. And he did not know that he, Daniel Hayes, a simple human from a young and mocked species, would be the one to save them all. But somewhere deep inside, he felt it. He felt that this was not the end of his story, that it was only the beginning. 3 months passed after Daniel Hayes left Philanthra Prime in shame. He returned to Earth and tried to forget what had happened. He worked at his desk, wrote reports, and told himself that humanity would find another way to join the galactic community. But at night, he dreamed of Princess Salara laughing at him. And he woke up with his fist tight. Then the message came. It arrived on a Tuesday morning, carried by a Korvathi ship that jumped out of hyperspace near Earth's moon. The ship was damaged, its hull covered with burns that no one could explain. The pilot was Tellus, the same alien who had shown Daniel kindness in the assembly hall. Tellus was dying. Daniel rushed to the medical station, where they had brought him. The Korvathi lay on a bed too small for his long body, his shell cracked and leaking dark fluid. "Commander Hayes," Tellus whispered when he saw Daniel. "You must listen. There is no time." Daniel leaned close. "What happened to you? Who did this?" "The Hollow." Tellus grabbed Daniel's arm with surprising strength. "They are real. They are coming." Daniel felt ice run down his spine. He had heard stories about the Hollow. Every spacefaring species had legends about them. Ancient tales of shadow creatures that came from the void between galaxies and erased everything they touched. But they were supposed to be myths, scary stories told to children. "That is impossible," Daniel said. "The Hollow are just legends." "No." Tellus coughed, and more dark fluid came from his mouth. "I saw them. My people detected their ship 3 weeks ago, coming from the void expanse. It is bigger than anything we have ever seen. Bigger than a moon. And it is heading toward the heart of civilized space." "How long?" 6 months. Maybe less. Tellus pulled Daniel closer. The assembly does not believe us. They think we are lying or wrong. But I have seen what the Hollow do. They do not conquer. They do not take prisoners. They erase. They make life disappear as if it never existed. Daniel's mind raced. Why are you telling me this? I have no power. The assembly rejected us. Tellus smiled weakly. Because I believe in your people, Commander. I have studied human history. You are violent, yes. You have done terrible things to each other. But you also survived. Every time your people faced destruction, they found a way to live. That is rare. That is precious. He pressed something into Daniel's hand. It was a small crystal, glowing with faint blue light. 18 years ago, when your people first traveled between stars, you found something. A signal hidden in the noise of space. Your scientists decoded it but kept it secret. I know this because my people have spies everywhere. Daniel looked at the crystal, his heart beating fast. He knew what Tellus was talking about. The signal was one of Earth's greatest secrets. Only a handful of people knew about it. The signal was a warning, Tellus continued. A warning about the Hollow, left by a civilization that fought them millions of years ago. But it was also a gift. Plans for a weapon. The only weapon that can stop them. The Cascade Engine, Daniel whispered. Yes. Tellus nodded slowly. Your people have been building it in secret. I know this too. What I do not know is if it works. But I believe it does. And I believe you are the one who must use it. Me? Why me? Because you understand it. Your file says you helped design it. And because the assembly will never listen to a Korvathi. But they might listen to a human who offers to save them. Tellus laughed bitterly. Funny, is it not? The species they mocked might be the only one who can help. His grip on Daniel's arm weakened. The light was fading from his large black eyes. Promise me, Tellus said. Promise me you will try. Daniel squeezed his hand. I promise. Tellus smiled one last time. Then he was still. Daniel stood there for a long moment, holding the hand of the dead alien who had believed in humanity when no one else did. Then he walked out of the medical station with the crystal in his pocket and fire in his heart. 2 weeks later, he was back on Volanthra Prime. The assembly was in chaos when he arrived. News of the Hollow had spread despite the leader's attempts to keep it quiet. Fear hung in the air like smoke. Representatives shouted at each other, blaming different species for different things, accomplishing nothing. Princess Saylara sat in her seat, her silver face pale. For the first time since Daniel had met her, she looked afraid. He requested permission to speak. This time, no one laughed. He walked onto the platform, the same platform where he had been humiliated 3 months ago. But everything was different now. The aliens who had ignored him before now stared at him with desperate hope. Honored representatives, Daniel said, his voice strong and clear. I come before you again. But this time, I do not come to ask for anything. I come to offer something. He touched a button on his wrist, and a hologram appeared above the platform. It showed a machine unlike anything the assembly had ever seen. A complex device of energy fields and dimensional anchors that seemed to fold space itself. 18 years ago, Daniel explained, humanity discovered a signal from deep space. It contained a warning about the Hollow and plans for a weapon called the Cascade Engine. We have spent 18 years building this weapon. It is almost complete. The hall erupted in noise. Aliens shouted questions, demanded proof, accused him of lying. Princess Saylara rose from her seat and walked down to the platform. She stood before Daniel, her 4 violet eyes searching his face. You expect us to believe this? She asked. Your species discovers faster than light travel, and at the same time, you just happen to find the one thing that can save us from an ancient enemy? That is too convenient. I understand your doubt, Princess, Daniel replied calmly. But I have proof. He held up the crystal Telos had given him. This contains all the data. The original signal. Our research. Our progress. Everything. He handed her the crystal. She took it slowly, as if it might burn her. Examine it, Daniel said. Have your best scientists study it. They will find that I am telling the truth. Selara looked at the crystal, then at Daniel. Something had changed in her eyes. The mockery was gone, replaced by something else. Uncertainty, perhaps. Or the beginning of respect. And if we believe you, she said quietly, what do you want in return? Daniel met her gaze without flinching. I want to lead the fleet. The hall fell silent. You? Selara's voice was barely above a whisper. A human? Leading the combined forces of the Galactic Assembly? I am the only one who fully understands the Cascade engine, Daniel said. Without me, it will not work. So yes, Princess Me. She stared at him for a long moment. Then she turned to face the assembly. Call the vote, she said. The vote was unanimous. For the first time in galactic history, humanity was granted emergency authority within the assembly. And Daniel Hayes, the man they had mocked and rejected, was placed in command of the largest fleet ever assembled. As representatives filed out of the hole, Selara approached Daniel one last time. I still do not trust you, she said. I know, but I hope you are right. For all our sakes. Daniel nodded. So do I, Princess. So do I. He walked out of the hall with the weight of 12 star systems on his shoulders. In 6 months, the Hollow would arrive. In 6 months, everything would be decided. He had promised a dying friend that he would try. Now he had to succeed. The flagship Endeavor was the largest ship humanity had ever built. It stretched 3 kilometers from front to back, and its engines could push it faster than any vessel in the galaxy. But even the Endeavor looked small compared to the fleet gathering around it. Ships from 12 different species filled the space. Mere Volantra Prime, Vethrani warships with their elegant curves, Kovathi destroyers covered in weapons, Salenthi carriers that held thousands of smaller fighters, and dozens more, each one representing a civilization that had decided to trust its future to a human commander. Daniel stood in the war room at the heart of the Endeavor. Screens covered every wall, showing maps of space, enemy positions, fleet movements, and 1,000 other details. Officers from different species worked at stations around him, their voices mixing into a constant hum of activity. He had not slept in 2 days. Princess. Selara entered the war room and found him staring at a tactical display. The assembly had made her the Vethrani liaison, forcing her to work closely with the man she had once mocked. She did not like it, but she followed orders. You look terrible, she said. Standing beside him, Daniel did not turn around. Thank you for the observation. When did you last sleep? Sleep is not important right now. He pointed at the display. The Hollow will reach the Kovathi border in 3 days. Admiral Karath wants to attack them there, in open space. He thinks we should hit them fast and hard before they get close to any populated worlds. And what do you think? Daniel shook his head slowly. I think that would be suicide. We do not know enough about them. We do not know how they fight or what weapons they use. If we attack blindly, we will lose. Selara studied his profile. Dark circles under his eyes. Tension in his jaw. The weight of billions of lives pressing down on him. She felt a strange emotion that she did not recognize at first. Then she realized what it was. Pity. You carry too much, she said softly. Daniel finally turned to look at her. Someone has to. But why you? There are hundreds of admirals in this fleet with more experience. Why does it have to be a human? Because I understand the Cascade engine. No one else does. Not fully. He paused. And because Telos believed in me. He died believing that humanity could save the galaxy. I will not let his faith be wrong. Selara remembered Telos. She had met him once, briefly, at some diplomatic function. She had thought he was just another boring observer from a minor species. Now she learned he had given his life to bring hope to a man she had treated like dirt. I was cruel to you, she said quietly. In the assembly, when we first met, I said terrible things. You did. I am sorry. Daniel looked at her for a long moment. Then he nodded. I know. Thank you. Before she could say anything else, alarms screamed through the ship. Red lights flashed. Officers shouted. The calm of the war room shattered into chaos. What is happening? Selara demanded. Daniel was already at the main display, his fingers flying across the controls. His face went pale. They are here, he said. The hollow. They are here early. The main screen showed the enemy. A ship, if it could be called that, emerged from the darkness of space. It was not like any vessel Selara had ever seen. It was wrong. Its shape hurt her eyes to look at. Angles that should not exist. Surfaces that seemed to shift and move. It was a piece of nightmare made real, and it was enormous. Bigger than a moon. Bigger than some planets. All ships, battle stations. Daniel ordered through the fleet-wide channel. This is not a drill. Repeat, this is not a drill. The fleet moved into formation. Thousands of ships spreading out, weapons charging, shields activating. It was the largest military force in galactic history. It should have been enough to destroy anything. It was not. The hollow ship fired. There was no warning. No flash of light. No beam of energy. One moment, a Salenti carrier was there. The next moment, it was gone. Not destroyed. Not broken into pieces. Just gone, as if it had never existed. Then another ship vanished. And another. And another. What is happening? Admiral Korath shouted through the communication system. Our ships are just disappearing. Daniel watched the battle unfold, his mind racing. The hollow weapons did not destroy things. They erased them. They removed them from existence itself. No shields could block that. No armor could resist it. We cannot fight them like this, he said to himself. We need to change the rules. Commander Hayes, Korath's voice came again. We are losing ships by the dozens. We must retreat. No. Daniel's voice was calm but firm. We do not retreat. We adapt. He studied the tactical display, looking for something, anything that could give them an advantage. The hollow ship was massive, but it was not fast. It moved slowly, methodically, erasing everything in its path. Like it had all the time in the universe, because it did. The hollow had been doing this for millions of years. They had never lost, but they had also never faced humans before. All ships, Daniel ordered. I am sending new coordinates. Every vessel capable of faster than light travel is to jump to these coordinates immediately. This is not a retreat. This is a trap. A trap? Korath sounded confused. How can we trap something like that? Trust me, Admiral. Jump now. Questions later. One by one, the ships of the fleet began to disappear into hyperspace. The hollow ship continued its advance, erasing stragglers who could not jump fast enough. In less than an hour, the space around Volanthra Prime was empty except for the massive enemy and the floating ghosts of ships that had been erased. Selara grabbed Daniel's arm. What are you doing? We are running away. You are letting them win. Daniel shook his head. I am not letting them win. I am moving the battle somewhere else. Somewhere that gives us an advantage. Where? A binary star system on the edge of the void expanse. Two suns orbiting each other, creating gravitational waves that twist space in unusual ways. He looked at her with something like fire in his eyes. The hollow exists partly outside our dimension. That is why our weapons do not work on them. They shift between realities, making themselves impossible to touch. So the Cascade Engine creates a dimensional anchor, a fixed point that forces everything nearby to exist fully in our reality. Combined with the gravitational anomalies of the binary system, it should work even better than we planned. Saylara began to understand. You want to trap them in our dimension. I want to make them play by our rules. Daniel smiled grimly. And then I want to make them pay for every civilization they have ever erased. The Endeavor jumped into hyperspace, leaving the darkness behind. But Daniel knew the darkness would follow. The Hollow were patient. They had chased countless civilizations across the stars. They would not stop now. He had 3 days to prepare. 3 days to save the galaxy. 3 days to prove that Princess Saylara had been wrong about humanity. He walked to the engineering bay where the Cascade Engine waited, its components humming with power. He placed his hand on its surface and made a silent promise. Tellus had believed in him. The fleet was counting on him. Billions of lives depended on what he did next. He would not fail. He could not fail. For the first time since the battle began, Daniel allowed himself to feel something other than fear and determination. He felt hope. Small and fragile, but real. The Hollow had never been beaten, but they had never faced humanity before, and humanity never gave up. The binary star system had no name. It was too far from civilization for anyone to care about it. 2 massive suns circled each other in an endless dance, their gravity pulling and twisting the space around them in ways that made navigation almost impossible. It was the perfect place for a last stand. Daniel stood in the engineering bay of the Endeavor, making final adjustments to the Cascade Engine. The device was beautiful in a strange way. Rings of light floated around a central core, each one spinning at a different speed. Inside the core, something that looked like liquid silver churned and glowed. Princess Saylara found him there, alone with the machine that might save them all. The fleet is in position, she reported. 900 ships, arranged exactly as you ordered. Admiral Karth is not happy about the formation. He says it leaves us exposed. It does, Daniel agreed without looking up. But exposure is the point. We need the Hollow to come straight at us. We need them to think we are making a desperate last stand with no tricks left to play. Are we not? Daniel paused his work and finally met her eyes. We have 1 trick left. The biggest trick in the history of the galaxy. But it only works if they get close enough. Saylara walked around the Cascade Engine, studying it with her 4 violet eyes. You really believe this will work? I believe it is our only chance. That is not what I asked. Daniel was quiet for a moment. Then he sighed. I believe in the people who built this. I believe in the civilization that sent the signal millions of years ago, trying to help species they would never meet. I believe in Tellus, who gave his life to bring us this information. And I believe in humanity. He returned to his work. Is that enough? I do not know. But it is what I have. Saylara watched him in silence. This human was nothing like she had expected. When she first saw him in the assembly hall, she had seen only a primitive creature from a primitive world. Now she saw something else. Strength, determination, a willingness to sacrifice everything for others. I misjudged you, she said quietly. You misjudged my species. I was just the example in front of you. Yes, I did. She moved closer to him. My people have ruled for 60,000 years. We have seen countless younger species rise and fall. We learned to look down on them, to assume they could never match us. It made us proud. It also made us blind. Daniel looked at her. And now? Now I stand beside a human who might save everything I love. She smiled slightly. I think perhaps pride is less important than survival. Before Daniel could respond, the ship shuddered. Alarms began to sound throughout the Endeavor. "They are here," he said. They ran to the bridge together. Through the massive windows, they could see the hollow ship emerging from hyperspace. It was even more terrifying here, with the light of two suns falling on its impossible surface. Shadows moved across it that had nothing to do with the light. Shapes twisted in ways that made the mind hurt. "All ships, hold position," Daniel ordered through the fleet channel. "Do not fire until I give the command. Repeat, do not fire." The hollow ship advanced slowly, moving between the two suns like a shark swimming through an ocean of fire. Small objects began to separate from its surface. Thousands of them. Tens of thousands. "Drones," Admiral Korath reported. "They are launching drones." The drones spread out in a wave, heading toward the fleet. Each one was about the size of a fighter ship, but they moved with a fluid grace that no machine should have. They were alive somehow, or at least they had once been alive, before the Hollow turned them into weapons. "Commander, we must fire," Korath urged. "If they reach us, not yet." Daniel watched the approaching swarm with cold calculation. Not yet. The distance closed. 10,000 kilometers. 5,000. 1,000. "Now," Daniel said. He activated the cascade engine. Light exploded from the Endeavor. Not light like a weapon, but light like a sunrise. It expanded outward in a perfect sphere, touching every ship, every drone, every piece of debris in the system. Where it touched the Hollow, something amazing happened. The drones stopped shifting. Their impossible angles became fixed. Their shadowy surfaces became solid. For the first time in millions of years, the Hollow were fully present in normal reality, and they screamed. The sound came through every communication channel in the fleet. It was not a sound made by voices or machines. It was the sound of creatures who had never known pain suddenly discovering what it felt like. "All ships fire," Daniel commanded. The fleet opened up with everything it had. Thousands of weapons locked onto the now visible drones and fired. Where before the Hollow had been untouchable, now they exploded like any other target. Blue blood and strange metals scattered into space. The main Hollow ship began to move faster, pushing toward the Endeavor. Its weapons charged, ready to erase the annoying human ship that had hurt it. "Focus all fire on the main vessel," Daniel ordered. "Keep hitting them. Do not give them time to adapt." The battle became chaos. Ships exploding. Weapons firing. Drones swarming around the fleet like angry insects. But for the first time, the galaxy was winning. For every ship they lost, they destroyed 100 drones. Then the Hollow ship fired at the Endeavor. The beam did not erase them. The cascade engine created a shield of dimensional energy that deflected the attack. But the ship shook violently. Systems failed. Lights went dark. Engine power dropping. The chief engineer reported, "We cannot maintain the field much longer." Daniel made a decision. "Say, Lara," he said. "Take command of the fleet." "What? Where are you going?" "The engine needs more power. I have to boost it manually from the core. Otherwise, the field will collapse and they will be able to phase out again. That will kill you. The radiation inside the core is fatal." Daniel looked at her one last time. "Then I will die doing something that matters." He ran before she could stop him. The core chamber was at the heart of the engine, protected by layers of shielding that he had to override manually. As he worked, he could feel the radiation beginning to affect him. His hands shook. His vision blurred. But he kept going. He reached the main power junction and began redirecting energy from the Endeavor's reactors directly into the engine. The ship would be helpless afterward, but the field would hold. Warning lights flashed. His body burned from the inside. He tasted blood in his mouth, but the field held. Outside, the fleet pressed their advantage. The hollow ship, unable to phase out of reality, began to take real damage for the first time in its existence. Pieces broke off. Explosions rippled across its surface. Then something unexpected happened. The hollow ship began to retreat. It turned away from the fleet and started moving toward the void expanse, toward the empty space between galaxies where it had hidden for millions of years. It was running. A cheer went up across the fleet. But Daniel collapsed on the floor of the core chamber with radiation poisoning burning through his body, did not hear it. Salara found him 10 minutes later. He was barely breathing, his skin covered with burns that went deeper than flesh. "You did it," she whispered, kneeling beside him. "They are running. You saved us." Daniel opened his eyes with great effort. "Not finished. Some of them stayed behind." She looked at the tactical display on her communicator. He was right. A portion of the hollow ship had broken off and was still attacking the fleet. Thousands of entities fighting with the fury of creatures who had never known defeat. "We will handle them," she promised. "You have done enough." "No." Daniel grabbed her arm weakly. "Lead them. Finish this. Show them what the galaxy can do when it fights together." His eyes closed. Salara stared at him for a long moment. Then she stood up and walked back to the bridge. "All ships," she announced, her voice cold and hard. "This is Princess Salara. Commander Hayes is wounded. I am taking command. Our enemy is hurt and afraid for the first time in millions of years. Let us teach them why they should be." The fleet attacked with renewed fury, and in the core chamber, Daniel Hayes lay still, his heartbeat growing weaker with each passing moment. But he smiled, because he knew they would win. The battle lasted 4 more hours. Under Salara's command, the combined fleet hunted down every remaining hollow entity that had stayed behind to fight. Without the ability to phase between dimensions, the ancient enemy was powerful, but not invincible. One by one, they fell. When the last hollow drone exploded, silence fell over the fleet. Ships floated in the glow of the binary suns, their crews struggling to believe what had happened. For the first time in millions of years, the hollow had been defeated. The creatures that had erased thousands of civilizations had finally met an enemy they could not destroy, but the celebration was quiet. Everyone knew the price that had been paid. On the Endeavor, medical teams worked desperately to save Daniel Hayes. The radiation from the Cascade engine had damaged his body in ways that were difficult to repair. His heart had stopped twice. His organs were failing. The doctors did everything they could, but they warned Salara that it might not be enough. That she stayed outside the medical bay for 3 days, sleeping in a chair when exhaustion forced her to rest. Officers brought her food that she barely touched. Representatives from other species came to offer their gratitude and condolences, but she sent them away. On the 4th day, the doctor came out with news. "He will live," she said. Salara felt her legs go weak. She had to grab the wall to stay standing. "The damage was severe," the doctor continued. "He will need months of treatment. His body will carry scars that cannot be healed. But he will live." Salara entered the medical bay. Daniel lay on a bed, connected to machines that hummed and beeped. His skin was pale, and his eyes were closed, but his chest rose and fell with steady breaths. She sat in a chair beside his bed and waited. 2 days later, he opened his eyes. "Princess," he said weakly, "did we win?" Salara laughed, a sound that was half joy and half tears. "Yes, Commander. We won." The hollow retreated. The ones that stayed behind were destroyed. The galaxy is safe. Daniel closed his eyes and smiled. "Good. That is good. You almost died. I know. You are an idiot. I know that too." She reached out and took his hand. You are also the bravest person I have ever met, human or otherwise." Daniel opened his eyes again and looked at her. "That means a lot, coming from someone who once said my species was unworthy of the stars." Selara felt her face grow hot with shame. "I was wrong. I was so completely, utterly wrong. And I am sorry. You have already apologized." "I know. But some mistakes require more than one apology." Daniel squeezed her hand weakly. "Then I accept, again." The recovery took 3 months. During that time, the Galactic Assembly met repeatedly to discuss what had happened and what it meant for the future. For the first time in its history, the Assembly voted unanimously on almost every issue. Humanity was granted full membership, with all the rights and responsibilities that came with it. The species that had been mocked and rejected was now recognized as an equal among the stars. But that was not the biggest change. When Daniel was finally well enough to travel, he was brought to Volanthra Prime for a ceremony unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Representatives from every member world gathered in the assembly hall. The same hall where he had been humiliated less than a year ago. This time, they stood as he entered. Daniel walked slowly, still weak from his injuries. Selara walked beside him, her silver skin glowing in the soft light of the hall. Neither of them spoke, but their shoulders touched. And that said everything that needed to be said. The assembly speaker waited on the central platform, holding a ceremonial staff that had not been used in 10,000 years. It was made of crystal and light, and it represented the highest honor the galaxy could give. "Commander Daniel Hayes of Earth," the speaker announced, his voice echoing through the hall. "You stand before the Galactic Assembly as a hero. You led our fleets against an enemy we believed was unstoppable. You risked your life to save civilizations that had rejected and mocked your people. You showed us what courage truly means." The speaker paused, looking around at the assembled representatives. "By unanimous vote of the Galactic Assembly, you are hereby granted the title of First Sentinel, Defender of the Civilized Worlds. This honor has never been given before. You are the first, and you carry with you the hopes and gratitude of every being who lives among the stars." Daniel accepted the staff. It was heavier than he expected, and he realized that the weight was not physical. It was the weight of responsibility, the weight of trust, the weight of every life that had been saved because he had refused to give up. "I accept this honor," he said, his voice quiet but steady, "not for myself, but for humanity. We are young. We have made terrible mistakes. We have done things that shame us. But we have also learned. We have grown. We have proven that even the youngest species can make a difference." He looked out at the crowd and all the different faces and forms watching him. "The Hollow will return someday. They are patient, and they have long memories. When they come back, they will be stronger and smarter. They will not make the same mistakes twice." He raised the staff. "Neither will we. From this day forward, humanity stands with the galaxy. Not above it, not below it, with it. Together, we will build a future where no civilization has to face the darkness alone." The hall erupted in applause. Species that had never agreed on anything cheered together. Old enemies stood side by side, united by what they had survived. Later that night, Daniel stood alone on a balcony overlooking the city of Volanthra. The stars spread across the sky like diamonds on black cloth. Somewhere out there, beyond the edge of known space, the Hollow waited. Selara found him there, as she always seemed to. "You are not celebrating with the others," she observed. "I am not much for parties." She stood beside him, looking at the same stars. "What are you thinking about?" "The future." Daniel was silent for a moment. "The Hollow will come back. Maybe not in my lifetime, but eventually. They have never been defeated before this. They will want revenge. Then we will stop them again. will we?" He turned to look at her. I almost died stopping them this time. What happens when I am gone? What happens when the people who remember this battle are dust? Saylara considered the question seriously. Then new heroes will rise. That is what history teaches us. Darkness always comes, but so does light. Your species proved that. Against all odds, against all expectations, you found a way. Daniel smiled slightly. You have changed, Princess. So have you, Commander. Or should I say, First Sentinel? Daniel is fine. Then call me Saylara. They stood together in comfortable silence, watching the stars wheel overhead. The universe was vast and ancient and dangerous. Enemies lurked in the darkness between galaxies. Challenges waited around every corner. But for this one moment, everything was peaceful. I never believed in destiny, Saylara said finally. My people teach that the universe is random and cold. But standing here, looking at what you have accomplished, I wonder if perhaps there is something more. Like what? Like perhaps some species are meant to rise at certain times. Like perhaps humanity discovered the stars when it did because the galaxy needed you. Daniel thought about that. He thought about Telos, who had died believing in human potential. He thought about the Cascade engine, built from plans left by a civilization millions of years dead. He thought about all the coincidences that had led to this moment. I do not know if there is a destiny, he admitted. But I know that we make choices. The Hollow chose to destroy. We chose to protect. Maybe that is all that matters. Saylara nodded slowly. Maybe it is. She reached out and took his hand. He did not pull away. Thank you, she said softly. For everything. For proving me wrong. For saving my people. For showing the galaxy what humanity can be. Daniel looked at her. At this alien princess who had once mocked his entire species and now stood beside him as an ally and friend. Thank you for giving me the chance, he replied, and far away. In the cold darkness of the void expanse, the Hollow watched and waited. They had been beaten, but they were not destroyed. They had learned something new, something they had never experienced in millions of years of existence. Fear. They feared the humans. They feared the small, fragile creatures from a small, fragile world who had somehow found the courage to stand against eternal darkness. One day, they would return. One day, they would try again. But on that day, they would find humanity waiting. Not alone, but surrounded by allies from across the galaxy. United, ready, unafraid. Because that was what humans did. They survived. They adapted. They never gave up. And when the stars themselves seemed to bow in gratitude to the man who had saved them, it was not just for one victory, it was for the promise of all the victories yet to come. The end.